Alright, so in this final module, we're going to take a look at putting everything that we've made separately into one file. But one of the first things we want to do is we haven't worked on anything organic yet. We've worked on all the bricks and whatnot. So let's go ahead and look at working on the tentacle that we want to have coming out of our mausoleum. So we'll just go ahead and go to import. We're going to import this tentacle obj. And I'm just going to left click and drag it onto the screen. So there we have a tentacle. Shift F so we can see our wireframe on it. It's not overly complicated. It's just basically a column. It tapers down to, a tentacle end. Let's go ahead and go to our polygroups. And if you look, let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to do the auto groups with UVs because this does have UVs. As you can see, we have two different polygroups now. And we want to be able to use that because with some of the detailing we're going to do with this, we want to be able to instantly be able to work on either just the top part of the tentacle or, of course, Control-Shift rectangle in the background to invert. We can work on the underside of it. All right. Control-Shift left-click in the background. Again, that's just hiding our different groups. Control-Shift click on it will select one. We can turn around and do what we need to with it. Let's go ahead and subdivide this. Control-D. Control-D, Control-D. Let's see what we're at. We're at 36,000 polygons. Let's go up to, let's actually knock it up to about 2 million polygons. It's okay for this particular piece to have that because I want to be able to get a little more detailing in there. Obviously, though, because this is an introduction, I'm just going to show you one way you can detail this. It's not the only way, and we're not going to get into uber details for this. We're not going to get down to veins and things, but we will get some basic ideas for what you can do with this, and then how you can continue on with it and make it a finished piece for yourself. Shift P to turn off my grid. All right, so we know, I'm going to hit Shift F to turn off the wireframe on it. We know that we can use alphas on this to do an alpha drag. So for instance, if we grab our drag rectangle and we go to our alpha and we import, we can look to say grab, and this is a alpha I got from Pixelogic Download Center. So you guys can go up and get it yourself, or we can include it in this. I just want to see what it looked like if I click and drag on this. Okay, so I get a little bit of a wrinkling effect, and that's fine. Let's try the reverse. Also, by the way, make sure you turn off your RGB. Let's go for a Z sub instead, so it's kind of eking into it. There we go, something more like that. I'm just going to do this all along this particular mesh, and you'll see what I'm doing in a second. If you look at the tentacles, you've got these suckers on the underside, you've got some wrinkling on the top side. I want to show you just how you can quickly get a basic idea with some of these things and what you can do with them just by using some of the standard issue kind of alphas you might get at Pixelogic. So I'm just clicking and dragging on this stuff. All right. Oops, and as you can see, because I did not hide that one polygroup, we now have it going all the way through because we also didn't turn on our back face masking. So let's go ahead and click out of that. We're going to do it one more time. Okay, let's make sure we have Control Shift click just on the top piece. We only want to be affecting the top piece right now. All right. So again, we'll quickly just redo this. It's not going to take us much time at all. I'm also going to then do a shift on this to soften it a little bit. You can see this is a nice alpha to work with, but I don't want the lines quite so defined, but I do want them cutting in and changing the geometry and affecting the geometry. And the thing is yes, I can turn off the intensity on the alpha, but that's not quite the effect I'm looking to get with this. All right, so there we go, something like that. And now I can, if I turn on my X, so I'm symmetry, I can go ahead and pull a little bit more on the sides, something like that. No, that's just too busy. It's far too busy for what I want. I'm just going to hold a shift, and I'm just going to go ahead and dull that down a little bit. I just want to give something that's there, but I don't want to go super detailed on that. All right, that's fine. Let's go ahead and look at another way we can actually put alphas onto this model without having to do a click and drag. There is something called Projection Master. What Projection Master does is you need to get your viewport set up so you've got this on the entire screen, have the tentacle within the bounds of this, because you're going to be basically doing what's called a projection. So we're going to click Projection Master. So right now it's asking, do you want colored, shaded materials, do you want it double-sided, do you want to fade, deformation, etc. Well, we do want to deform the model. That much we want to do. We don't need colors or shades or materials. We don't need to be double-sided. With normalized on or off, you'll see the difference. Right now it's on, so it means it bases it on the normal, so it's going to do a nice deformation. If I turn that off, you can see it's a forward projection only. I do want to make sure I've got that on. So I'm going to go for drop now. In this case, what do we want? We want to drag rectangle, and we want to go ahead and grab and import our scale. Again, this is from Pixelogic. And now what I can do is I can just left click and drag. So you can see, it's kind of far away, but you can see how I can actually now add the scaling on top of that model. All right, so I'm just gonna, and I'm just doing this really quickly, because of course, we don't have all the time in the world. Let's go ahead, and you can see even I'm not getting this lined up just, I'm trying to make sure it's just right. There we go, that's much better, okay. Obviously you want the alphas to match up, because this is a tileable texture, so you want to try and make sure you can match up the different tiles or the different seams. So it's just a matter of pulling it in a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and say we're done. So click on Projection Master again and say pick up now. Now, as you can see, that really deformed and gave a nice edge to the top of this tentacle. All right, didn't affect the sides that much because it was, again, it was affecting the sides. It got to a certain point, but after the angle of this, as you can see, it's kind of it starts to cut under. It doesn't pay attention to that, and that's fine. I don't need that there. I do want to go ahead and turn on the freehand. Let's go ahead and go up to our stroke, make sure the mouse average is all the way up, and oh good, lazy mouse is off. All right, for this, I just want to grab, again, this is very quick. We still have symmetry on. I'm going to scale the brush down a little bit, and I'm just going to do this little connecting kind of thing on these edges here, just to give it a little something. Because then we have suckers to add in underneath. Lots of different ways to do this, but I think this is probably be more of a simpler way to do this for you guys. Also, I generally, as I've mentioned before in some of the modules, I generally would have done this on a layer, but for now I think we'll get a good result, so I'm okay with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep pulling this down. There we go. And the end sorts of messes up, but that's okay. Makes it look interesting. All right, let's go ahead and Control-Shift, draw a rectangle in the background. Okay, so now we have the underside that you can see has not been affected. Edges have been, because remember this is still one mesh. Edges have been affected, but really not much else. So let's go ahead and grab an alpha, this round alpha here. And in this case, instead of doing a drag rectangle, we're just going to draw it on. Oops, the intensity is a little high on this. Let's just drop it down a bit. All right, so we want some of the suckers, and it's okay right now that these side ones are a little bit larger and that it's symmetrical. All right, but that's okay. It'll still look pretty good when we're done. All right. And please make sure that as you're going down the line, you are changing the size of your brushes, because otherwise your suckers are going to be, giant size when they get down to the small end, and that's obviously not the way real tentacles do it. Okay, something like that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn off symmetry, and I'm going to add in a couple here and there just to break up the monotony, so to speak. And I'll do a couple over here. And a couple more back here. There we go. Just something like that. Just breaks it up a little bit. And of course, since this is going to be an otherworldly tentacle, who knows what it really looks like and how it really functions. Let's go ahead and put the Z sub on. Hit X for the symmetry. Let's go ahead and carve out, you know, the indent area that you'd find on these suckers, quite literally. And again, this is quick. You'd obviously be taking more time for yourselves for this particular piece, but for purposes of this video, this is being done very quickly. I would nowhere near do something like this. I would get a lot more detailed than this, obviously. But again, for these purposes, I think it'll be fine. It'll certainly give the impression that it's a tentacle, so I'm okay with that. And let's just keep going down. And I am actually scaling my brush while I'm doing it. All right, and then on the odd ones, turn off the symmetry. That way I can go ahead and affect the few oddball ones that are most definitely not symmetrical. There we go. And again, you want to scale your brush up a little bit to fit the size of the sucker. Go. All right, something like that. Sure, I'm okay with that. I would probably look to use my damn standard. I'm going to hit the D key to get damn standard. And I'm going to actually create, I'm going to hit Shift F so I can see kind of where the center line is. And I kind of want to do this, oops, that's a bit much. Let's turn this down. I want to do something slightly in the middle. I'm not going following the line. As you can see, I am not following it 100%. I want to get something in there so it looks like it's a center point, like in nature. Sometimes we'll have Shift F to turn that off. Okay. Now in this case, what I might do is turn symmetry on to get just a few of these in there. Okay, and again, this is done very quickly because I'll also look to, I'm going to turn symmetry off for just a second, and we had some overlap on some ones. Okay, anytime I'm going to have one of those suckers where it's kind of interfering with the symmetry, I want to go ahead and make sure I turn off the symmetry, so it's just a quick X on, X off. Okay. Something like this. And again, this is very quick, but for tutorial purposes, it'll work. I'm then going to actually do a bit of, oops, sorry. I'm then going to do a little bit of an inflate. There we go. There we go. And again, I'm not being super specific, like, for spacing. I am trying to alter that a little bit so that what is on one side isn't necessarily going to be on the other. Okay, I'm also now going to go to the inflate brush, hit I, and you can find inflate right there. In this case, you usually have to really crank it up a little bit, but I want to actually go into these, the wrinkles. Oh, I actually have to turn it down. Sometimes it's kind of very tepid. All right, and again, I'm just kind of pulling these out. I'm just overlapping. Instead of going to where the damn brush cuts in, I'm actually going between them to puff them out a little bit, give them a little oomph in there. Again, this is just to break it up because we don't want everything to be consistently flattish with this round. In fact, obviously I'd probably add in a lot more wrinkles, a lot more suckers, but again, for purposes, I think we could be okay with that. And as I go along, I'm just kind of doing every other one. Again, I try to be very asymmetrical with this stuff when I'm working on it. I try to make sure it's going to break up a little bit and not be so obviously mirrored, etc. when I'm working on it. All right, so let's do a Control Shift dot click in the background. So there we go. Hit P for perspective. That's an acceptable tentacle. I'd be okay with that. Let's go ahead and make sure we save this up, and we'll call it tentacle_01, and we'll continue.